Good morning, everybody. Sorry, quick background change. I was teaching some students last night. So, how is everyone doing this morning? Did you have a wonderful week? I hope you did. I am just getting started this afternoon and very interested. There we go. Very interested in our topic today and to hearing your thoughts on what you guys were able to accomplish. Coffee time, right? Need to wake up the brain cells this morning. All right, so welcome again. So this is our AMA, Ask Me Anything. So the purpose of this is to go a little bit deeper from our MiniMasters. So our MiniMasters are designed as small, digestible pieces of different aspects in honing your business, right? And the week in between, we do an AMA, Ask Me Anything. So this is your opportunity to ask me questions about the workbook, to go a little bit deeper, for me to explain some things a little bit further, and to look ahead into next week's topic. All right? So once again, welcome. I'm excited to have you here as we recap last week's MiniMasters on your niche. And we're going to dive a little deeper on how defining your niche is basically key to standing out, okay? This is also your chance, again, for me to answer questions. So if you have those, definitely pop them in. If you see me looking to the side, I do have a second screen over here that I'm checking. All right. So, but don't forget to stick around because I'm giving you also a sneak peek into next week's MiniMasters on identifying your ideal client, how it builds on what we've already covered and why it's crucial. Okay, so let's dive in. So first, let's do a little recap here. Okay, so we had talked about what's your niche, right? So what is your niche? Do you remember what your niche is? Not your specific niche, but as a niche in general. What is a niche, right? Do you guys remember what this is? So let me just give you a little bit from the workbook, what we defined what a niche is, okay? Just a little recap here. So a niche is basically all about solving specific problems for a specific group of people. The narrower your niche becomes, the stronger your message becomes. So why does it matter your niche selection? Well, choosing a very specific niche allows you to become the expert, the go-to expert, the person everybody thinks of when they're like, oh, if I want to know information about that, that's who I need to talk to. We have people like that in our lives. Sometimes it's a parent or a grandparent or a best friend, that one person that, you know, when we have a question, maybe about life, that's who we go to. And then we'll have somebody that we, you know, really respect for a certain very specific topic, right? And this is the person that we think of off the top of their head. Oh, this is who I need to go to ask that question, okay? That's because they have defined themselves in that specific niche, in that specific topic as the expert that people think of, all right? So the point is to tailor your message and offerings and a solution that meets their needs by also reducing your competition, by building loyalty, okay? So you're building loyalty by being that expert. And you're an expert because you have narrowed down your focus to a specific set of solutions, okay? It can be one solution or a set of related solutions, but they're specific. And so now you have to have a micro niche, okay? So we also talked about last week, we also talked about overcoming some common challenges. So we discussed things like lack of focus, inconsistency, imitating others. So it's all about finding and leveraging your strengths while also staying authentic to who you are. Remember, we never compromise authenticity, okay? So did anything stand out for you during last week's session? drop your thoughts in the comments and I'll go over them now or later. Definitely feel free to drop comments after the live. I will come back and check them out as well. Okay. So there's a couple challenges that I'd like to talk about. First of all, authenticity. This has to do a lot with imitation. So sometimes people will imitate others, but it doesn't actually align with who they are as a person. So the problem is when somebody contacts you, maybe for a meeting or to chat with you online, however it is that you serve your audience, the persona that they see online is not matching the person they're talking to in person or through a chat. And so there's a huge disconnect. So you've lost your authenticity, you've lost your loyalty, you've lost your trustworthiness. You're no longer the go-to expert, because now you kind of feel like, am I being scammed here? Is this the person I was talking to before? Who is this? Right? So that's also part of authenticity. It is okay to mimic somebody, to get ideas. Not mimic as in copy, but when I say mimic, I mean loving a process and making it your own. That is authentic. Literally copying it down to the tone, inflection, and exact steps. That is imitation. So we need to understand the difference between the two. And when you go into the realm of imitation, you have now lost all credibility and authenticity. Okay? And trust me, people talk. Bad and negative thoughts, reviews travel much faster than the positive. All right. Remember that in the future. Negative reviews, negative opinions will travel faster. People talk more. Think about when you've had something negative happen to you. You have spread that knowledge farther and faster than most people will spread the positive. It's also why I make it a point that whenever I have a really great reaction with somebody in a company, an employee, somebody, I make sure that they're recognized for that. I will ask for a manager a lot of times and say, this is a great employee. You really should recognize them. They did, because most people just don't do that. And I think in this day and age, we really need to focus more on that, to be honest. But always remember, when you are interacting with your audience, negative will travel faster than positive. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a frog in my throat this morning. All right, so let's go a bit deeper today into niche mastery. Okay, so we had talked about what a niche is. We talked a little bit about a micro niche. So do you remember the concept of a micro niche? Does anybody know what a micro niche is? I mean, we know what a niche is, who we service. That's our audience, right? Super easy, no problem. But we're still not an expert if we're talking to this really large niche, right? So going even narrower in your niche allows you to connect more deeply with a smaller audience. So the example I had used in our workbook was bakeries. Okay, so I like to use different examples from different markets, so that way we're not just always talking about one market. Okay, so a bakery, for example, where I live, there are a ton of bakeries and they all sell pretty much exactly the same thing. There really is no difference unless we go to like a high-end bakery. Now that was a micro niche. The high-end bakery has different ingredients. They have different offerings. They have some very tailored and specific food that they sell that no others sell, right? But I had talked about a bakery where the micro niche had been gluten-free. So gluten-free products. So now that's the micro niche. They are a bakery in the larger niche. So of course they're going to have some other things, but their focus is really on the gluten-free market. So they might sell the same offerings, but they're all gluten-free. So now they have less competition. Their market is a little bit smaller, but also their competition in that market is much smaller. So now they're dragging that demographic from the larger niche to them, and they can service them better and they can market to them better. All right. So let's take a look at a different real world example. So imagine a fitness designer, for example. And I have a fun little picture for this. So let's share screen real quick here. Okay, I have a fun little demographic for this. There we go. All right. So real world example. So let's imagine a fitness app designer specifically for pet owners who want to exercise with their pets, right? Wouldn't you want to exercise with this lovely little guy? So this app carves out a unique niche in a very crowded fitness app market, especially since COVID, right? Everybody is online using apps. You know, how do you target this when there's just so many people who are using the fitness apps? Well, this person got very specific and was passionate about their pet. Maybe they work out with their own pet and they thought, you know what, this is a really good idea. I'm going to service people who, like me, like to exercise with my pet, right? So by addressing this very specific audience, they've carved out a micro niche for themselves. So general fitness apps focus on human exercise routines, right? But this app meets the unique needs of helping pet owners stay active alongside their pets. And maybe their pet needs to be active as well, right? Accountability. So by focusing on this niche, the app actually stands out separate from the larger fitness app market and creates a unique, loyal customer base by addressing a gap in the market that other apps have overlooked, okay? So the question becomes, what specific gaps in the market can you identify that align with your business strengths, right? So it can also be, you might service the larger niche, which is fine, right? But you need to narrow down really what are some really targeted things that you guys excel at or that you're really excited about. So the takeaway here is that niche mastery doesn't just mean finding any small segment, okay? It's about identifying gaps in the market that align with your unique strengths, passions, or goals, okay? Just like the pet fitness app found a gap by catering to pet owners, you can do the same in your business by identifying where your skills, your passions, meets the needs of your audience. So where that overlaps, where that intersects, okay? So what specific needs, again, can you identify? You know, take a second to really think about that. Go deep, right? Really think about also maybe make 2 lists. I would make a list if it's very hard for you to find out what your micro niche is. I would actually probably do a table list. So we teach this a lot in a lot of my students. It's a T table like this, right? Okay. I would probably make a table like this, and I would think of all maybe the things that we solve over here, just all the problems we solve, all of them. Just put them all down. Doesn't matter how big, small, you like it or not, all the things that you solve. Now here, bring over here the things that you enjoy solving, that you just know a ton about. The other stuff is just stuff you solve, but you could care less about, right? I have things that I do like that. I'm not gonna lie about that. There's things I can do, it's easy for me, but it's nothing I'm passionate about, but I can quite easily solve those problems. But there are a set of skills that I'm really good at. Those are the things that you're gonna bring over, the things that you just, in 2 seconds, if somebody asks you to give a 30-minute speech, you could walk up unprepared and just go. That's your micro niche, okay? All right, so now let's dive into some questions, all right? So I'm gonna stop sharing here real quick. Let's dive into some questions, all right? Okay, so this is your chance to ask me anything about mastering your niche or anything else that you have in mind. Now remember, if you are coming after the live, you can still ask me some questions for a couple of days. I will still answer, okay? No worries. So let's talk about some common questions that I have personally been asked, and we'll start there. Okay, so how do I know, so micro niches, right? How do I know if my niche is too narrow or too large, too broad, right? Am I throwing my net too big, or is it so tiny not even the smallest fish could make it in? Okay, well, this actually is a common concern, and people really do worry about this a lot. It's because it's counterintuitive. We think that throwing a wider net means more fish, right? Well, not when everybody is throwing a net on top of everybody else, on top of everybody else, or your net has a huge hole in it. Okay. So if you find that your audience is too small to sustain your business goals, so let's say you niche, we call it niching down, right? So you're making it smaller and smaller, and it's not sustaining your business any longer. Like, you just cannot attract clients. Your niche is too narrow. You have gone too narrow. Now, that is an overview statement, because there are other reasons why you would not be attracting clients, and you'd have to, weed those out as well. For example, branding, your messaging and things like that. But if you had no problem before, but you really wanted to really segment your audience, and now all of a sudden you don't have an audience, your niche might be a little bit too narrow, and then you'd have to look about maybe expanding it a bit, or change how you are marketing that. Okay. My apologies. I keep looking off to the side. I should probably just bring the thing over here so that I can see you guys, see myself. All right. So on the other hand, if you're trying to speak to too many different audiences or different types of customers, you're going to be too broad. So if you're constantly getting customers who say, well, I'm going to do some price checking, or I'm going to check out all these other people, that means you're probably a little bit broad. Okay. Now, I am completely guilty of this. I do this a lot. I do like to price shop. I like to see what other people have to offer, and then I make an informed decision. Now, that is different from people who just have a plethora of choices of the exact same thing you're selling. Now you're too broad. Okay. So the key is balance. You need to focus on a specific group whose needs you can serve deeply, but with enough demand to keep growing. All right. So what if you're struggling to find a niche that even just feels right? Okay. Now, that is also normal to struggle with finding your niche. Okay. So my advice is to start by thinking about the problems you are passionate about. So that T chart I was talking about, where I said, put everything you do on one side. Don't even think about it. Just write it all down, whether you like it or not, everything you do. Bring over the ones that, oh, I really like doing this. I love doing this. Oh, I know a lot about that. But do I know a lot about it and hate that topic? Or do I know a lot about it and really love this topic? There's a difference. There are topics I know a lot about, but I do not enjoy doing. I'll give you an example on that one, in my personal life, okay? So I originally went to college for computer science, and I love computers. Like, I just love the tech side of things. I just love it. Okay. I love programming. I love all that stuff. I found out about almost 2 years in that as much as I love tech, I hate fixing other people's problems with tech. I don't mind helping the one-off friend or things like that, but like doing it as a job, because I was doing it I was an assistant administrator while I was going to school for a small business. I learned very quickly that this is not the job for me. Working with a lot of people who would, somehow get into a part of the system they shouldn't have been in and push one button that takes hours to figure out was just not a skill that I enjoyed doing. I could do it and I was very good at it, but I didn't enjoy it. So I learned that the skills that I learned in that, I actually applied it to my businesses now. So this is what I'm talking about. You need to find the things you love. So I love all these things, but I didn't love it as a job. I loved it as knowledge for something else. Okay. So how do you transition to a new niche without losing your audience? Okay. Well, let's first talk about, struggling to find your niche. Okay. So there's a difference between what you know and what you're passionate about. Okay. So you need to take those things that you had in that column 1 and bring over the ones that not only do you know just a ton about and you are but you have to be passionate. You like it. Okay. Once you start focusing on a specific group, your niche will actually evolve over time and with feedback. So feedback is very important. Okay, now let's talk about how to transition to a new niche without losing maybe your current audience. Okay, now it is a real thing if you completely change audiences. You're naturally going to lose some people. But if it's more of a niching down or a slight focus change, there is a way to do it with bringing them with you. And even when you do a complete change, if you're already considered trustworthy and you have a loyal base, they'll sometimes come with you as well. Okay. So transitioning to a new niche can actually feel very risky, but it is all really about the communication that you have with your audience. So take your existing audience on the journey with you by being transparent about why you're shifting focus, how things will change, and how it will benefit them. So they need to know your reasoning. Right? And if you're personable and you can create that connection with them, bring them on the journey, show them what you're doing, give them some behind the scenes, looks. But you need to still focus on the benefit. By gradually introducing new concepts or services, you can bring your audience along really without losing them. Okay? So is your niche too narrow or too broad? Use these steps to help figure it out. Okay? Help you really narrow that down. Are you struggling to even find your niche? Let me know and we can discuss that. Or has anyone transitioned to a new niche? Give me some information on that and tell me, how did it go? What did you do? We're interested to know. All right, so let's move into preview of next week. What's going on for our MiniMasters next week? Okay, our little small bites. So we're going to talk about identifying your ideal client, okay? So you're probably asking me, oh, but I joined your workshop. We did an ideal client avatar. Isn't that the same thing? No. So in our previous workshop, we talked about ideal client avatar, ICA, which is a detailed persona that helps you understand who your ideal customer is. The ICA actually focuses on demographics, behaviors, and motivations to guide your messaging and product development. So remember that. Demographics to guide your messaging and product development, okay? But next week, we're going to shift into Ideal Client Profile, ICP, not ICA. So this actually is going to go beyond demographics and behaviors. Okay, so if you have not seen my workshop, I suggest going back and watching that and asking me maybe for the workbook for that. You really need to know who your ICA is. And if you don't, that's okay. We'll touch on that in next week's MiniMasters as well. But it does go beyond the demographics and behaviors. It's about understanding where your ideal client is in their business journey. So before, it was more of the person themselves, their demographic, their behaviors, their motivations. But now an ideal client profile is where your ideal client is in their journey, personal or professional, okay? So what specific challenges they are facing and how you can provide a solution that fits their needs. While the ICA helps you crafting a message, the ICP helps you shape your offerings and align that with your ideal client and what they're actually looking for, okay? So one is all about aligning your messaging to the person, while the other one is aligning your services and your offerings with what they're looking for. So why knowing your ideal client matters? Why does this matter? So identifying your ideal client is extremely important because it enables you to focus your energy on clients who are the best fit for your services. Again, this is why we don't throw our net wide, because you get tons of people that really don't fit what you're servicing, right? Or you get people who are looky-loos, maybe not really interested, so maybe they'll waste a lot of time asking questions that really they should be going somewhere else, right? And it's just not a fit. You don't really service this person, which could turn into a negative review, by the way. You know, taking everybody just to take everybody is not always the best idea as well, because if you don't really service that niche, you're doing them a disservice and yourself, because you're not giving them the best quality, because it's not really what you service. They're not receiving the best quality, so they might not see the value for money, which would lead to a negative review, right? So there is a double impact there for you, a negative one. So it's not just about knowing who they are, it's about understanding their pain points, what they really are having problems with, deeply enough to tailor your solutions to specifically help them. So in next week's MiniMasters, we're going to help you create that ideal client profile that you can use to refine your business strategies, shape your services, and make marketing more effective. We're also going to revisit the ICA for those who maybe are a little confused about that. So here's our takeaway for today. We're going to be, our takeaway from today is know your niche, narrow down, get a micro niche. Make sure that you have your T-chart and you are taking everything you know and then moving it into what you're passionate about and love, okay? So we're going to be shifting also into an ICP, Ideal Client Profile, from the ICA, Ideal Client Avatar. And it's going to be more about understanding who they are, because we have a micro niche, to understand what they need at a deeper level from the micro niche. This is why I keep talking about it. This will help you design your business around serving your clients more effectively and really creating that long-term, not only success, but the loyalty. We want that return client, the one who always thinks of us. We want to have that authenticity. We want to be that expert, okay? So make sure to join us next week. Join me next week. If you have any questions about the shift from ICA to ICP, ask them now in the comments or bring them with you next week, all right? So I am going to also here in the comments, I'm giving you a link again to our niche clarity worksheet. This was the worksheet for last week's class. It is essential for this week's as well, so that you can make sure to have this. So have you identified your ICP at all yet? Do you maybe think you know what it is, or what challenges have you faced? All right. So thank you for joining me today for our AMA Ask Me Anything. I love having these types of little chat. So remember, it'll be weekly, every second and fourth week of the month. We have the AMA, and every first and third we have our MiniMasters. So I'm excited to see how you're mastering your niche. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to check out the clarity worksheet to solidify your focus for next week's MiniMasters, okay? And we're going to have that MiniMasters on identifying your ideal client. So I look forward to seeing you there. And if you have any more questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. All right, you guys, have a wonderful week, and I will see you soon. Goodbye, everybody.